Hey everybody, it's Michael from Wahoo Comics here with another Comic Collector Spotlight, where we talk about how the stories from comics become a part of our own personal stories and bring our stories together. Today, I'm really excited to have a friend from high school, Fuzz, on here with me, and he's a real example of how comics can bring us together. A big part of our friendship in high school developed around our mutual love of comics. And I'm going to share one brief story before I ask him to tell us a little bit about his own collecting. I remember back in those days, I used to get $5 a week in allowance, and I would use it all to spend on comics. And back in those days, every 25th issue of Marvel Comics would end with a big payoff to a storyline, and the issue would be double sized and have a special like foil or hologram cover. But that meant it would cost 3 or 4 times more than a usual issue. So if I were going to buy it, that meant I would have to cut out other issues. And so one of the titles I collected was Silver Surfer. And there was a storyline called The Herald's Ordeal that was going to culminate in issue 75. But I wasn't able to buy that issue because it would have meant I missed out on several other issues. And so I was talking to Fuzz one day and mentioned, oh man, I don't know how that storyline paid off. But he said, hey, I've got that issue. I'll bring it to school tomorrow and let you take it home and read it. And that really meant a lot to me. Obviously, it was just a little small thing, but it stuck with me and really meant a lot to our friendship. And here 25 years later, I still really remember it. So Fuzz, I'm really excited to have you on today and looking forward to hearing what you have to share. Why don't you start off telling us a little bit about what got you first reading comic books?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on your show. I watched a couple of episodes and really found the nostalgic factor to be very, very enjoyable. I originally got into comic books. I was about 7 years old. I came to the States from Pakistan. My dad was working, doing his residency at Maimonides Hospital in Brooklyn, New York. There was this mom and pop store right at the corner from the hospital, and he would stop there and he would get us toys and comic books, and there was a rack of comic books. And I remember he got me the very first comic book that I ever read was Captain America issue 314. That was guest starring Nighthawk of the Squadron Supreme. The storyline was the Squadron Supreme ultimately became authoritarian and took over their world governments, and Nighthawk was the only good guy who's like the analog of Batman, and he didn't agree with a lot of what they were doing. Now he came to the Marvel universe 616. His universe is 712, I believe. He came and he wanted to get help. He got Captain America, tried to enlist Captain America's help. There were some superpowered criminals also escaping from Squadron Supreme for their life, but he helped, Captain America helped Nighthawk capture them, and they were going to try to get the Avengers to help him with the Squadron Supreme. That ultimately led me to collecting comic books, and I branched out. Captain America was my original favorite, but I branched out into Spider-Man and then Silver Surfer, who was my all-time favorite.
Yeah, and I know obviously you let me borrow Silver Surfer, and he's been a real big part of your collecting story. And first of all, I just think it's really cool how your dad bought you comic books to help you. Yeah, I know you mentioned to me earlier, improve your reading and vocabulary. And I know that'll always be something that you remember fondly about him, and that you'll have those memories forever.
Yes.
But the Silver Surfer, yeah, became a big part of your collecting hobby. And for my viewers who don't know who the Silver Surfer is, he was a herald of Galactus. And Galactus is this big cosmic being who had to eat planets to survive. And he would send the Silver Surfer out as a scout to find new planets for him to devour. And what about the Silver Surfer made him your favorite character, or at least one of your favorites?
Well, as you know, Silver Surfer was a cosmic herald of Galactus. He was a normal individual named Norrin Rad who wanted to save his world. And Galactus devoured planets to get energies from them. He found that his best meals came from populated worlds, from sentient beings. Silver Surfer, as he became to be known, Norrin Rad, when he was imbued with the power cosmic, he was very noble, heroic, and peaceful. And he wanted to lead Galactus, world devourer, to planets that were not populated by sentient beings to satiate his hunger. However, Galactus would always say the best meals came from populated worlds. And Silver Surfer did not want that on his conscience, having millions or trillions of lives lost just to feed this unending hunger of Galactus. So he rebelled against his master in that classic series of Fantastic Four, issue 48 through 50, which is like ultra phenomenal storyline and has been featured in the movie Rise of the Silver Surfer, but that the way they portrayed Galactus was not as people would have wanted it. So yeah, he is very heroic. He's very the ultimate culmination of that was Galactus found heralds that listened to him, basically just wanted death and destruction. He didn't care about leading him to populated worlds. Named Morg, was like a beast out, hulked out version of all the heralds. Silver Surfer gathered all the heralds up until that point. Fire Lord, Nova, who was Johnny Storm's ex-lover interest of the Fantastic Four, Airwalker, and Terrax. These heralds all rebelled against Galactus because they were peaceful except for Terrax. He just wanted to conquer. He was ambitious. But Morg was a bloodthirsty lapdog who would just do what his master told him. So they all fought, and it took all their powers combined to take down Morg, who was just basically running amok at the time. So.
Yeah, and that was the Harold's Ordeal storyline I talked about before. And I remember reading through the first few issues of that storyline and being, how are they going to defeat Morg? And then not knowing when I couldn't read issue 75. And so I was so excited and thankful to you when I got to read that. And I know, obviously, that was one of many awesome storylines that the Silver Surfer was involved in. And I think you brought a couple of comics that you wanted to show off that introduced to some of your favorite storylines.
One of the things, I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I am a big fan, especially Endgame was phenomenal. Infinity War was amazing. And I wouldn't change a thing. I loved how Thor, Captain America picked up Thor's hammer.
Yeah, that was an awesome
and
moment.
pummeled Thanos in Endgame. That was awesome. There were also a lot of amazing scenes when he said, "I'm Iron Man." And that was amazing too. Just like everything was amazing. I wouldn't change a thing. But Silver Surfer and another character we're going to mention here was featured heavily in the Infinity Saga. So basically, Jim Starlin created Thanos. He got Silver Surfer in on this as well. This issue, Silver Surfer issue 34, Thanos existed in the 70s, but he was defeated by, and I will mention him, and I think Mike had touched on this in his other video. He was known as him, who eventually became Adam Warlock, who's had a cameo hint appearance in Volume 2 of Guardians of the Galaxy. He may be featured in the future. But these were two characters that had such a central role in the Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, and Infinity Crusade. A lot of the Infinity Gauntlet and some of the Infinity War were featured in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to some extent.
Yeah, I think it's wild that those two massive movies just don't include arguably the two most important characters from the story.
They're because of the legal issues, movie rights and whatnot. But I'm hoping that in phase 4 and future phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they will be featured and in the right proper way.
Yeah.
So that was, but speaking of Adam Warlock, here is Warlock and the Infinity Watch. And the Infinity Watch were the Infinity Gems, as they were known back in the 90s before they became called the Infinity Stones, as we know them today, were basically little gems that had the power to do anything that they could do, like time, where you could travel through time, space, you could be anywhere in the universe at a blink of an eye. reality, you can travel any different realities, or power, you were like the most powerful being in that universe. But all those combined onto the Infinity Gauntlet, as we saw in the film, just makes the guy just unstoppable and undefeatable. And it just took the combined might of all the Marvel superheroes to take Thanos down. So
Yeah, and it's cool. You have the comic where it all first kind of got started with Silver Surfer 34, kind of the return of Thanos.
right,
It's an issue I don't have. It's on my to get list one day.
right.
And it's an awesome storyline. I know what you're talking about before. Obviously, it seems like the cosmic area of the Marvel universe is going to be explored more in some of the upcoming movies. And
It is.
we
It
get
is.
Silver Surfer and Warlock. And you were talking to me earlier. Who is someone you really are hoping to be introduced in the Marvel universe?
Well, I think that Marvel Cinematic Universe has done an amazing job with the storylines thus far, but they haven't really done villains a lot of justice, other than Loki, who has his own TV show, and I think everybody should check that out. It's pretty cool. And then there is Kingpin, who was in the Daredevil. Vincent D'Onofrio was phenomenal. He was amazing. And then I think I also like Eric Killmonger in Black Panther. Was amazing. But unfortunately, then you have the Malekiths, and then you have the Darren Crosses. They're good, but they just kind of fall flat. So I want them to feature, after they feature Adam Warlock, I want them to feature this guy as the Magus, or the Magus, however you call him. This is the Infinity War saga, which I remember going to the comic stand back in '92 and collecting all these issues of the Infinity War. It's not based off of the MCU movie. That was based off of more like Thanos' quest, how he gathers the stones, and Infinity Gauntlet, when what he does with it after. They change a lot of the storylines over the time, and I think they did a pretty decent job with the characters that they had. But a lot of these, you read the comic book version versus the movie version. The book version, I still think, is better than, because it's amazing. And Jim Starlin is one of my favorite writers or creators of all time. And Ron Lim is an artist. I think his art is really, really, it's just like sturdy. I don't know the best way to describe all his characters. They just look like heroic. And whenever I think of them, when I close my eyes, of Spider-Man or Peter Parker or Captain America, I think of them in that Ron Lim drawing. You hear a voice whenever you're reading a story of something.
Sure.
You hear it in the voice. I'll always hear, whenever reading a Star Trek novel, I'll hear Captain Picard's voice, Patrick Stewart's voice. But when I see these characters in my mind's eye, I see them as Ron Lim's characters. So drawings. So it's like amazing art. I think they made an amazing team of writer and penciler back then. So
yeah, that's awesome. And the Magus is an awesome character. I think it'd be a fantastic storyline to have him involved at some point. And some of these other big cosmic characters, I'm hoping Annihilus comes at some point. That's one that's on my list.
One little segue, since we have here, issue 5 of the Infinity War features Doctor Doom and Kang. Kang is a time traveler who I believe is going to be featured heavily in Phase 4 as the next Avengers villain. And then this guy here, Doctor Doom, Victor Von Doom, he is like the ultimate bad guy of all time in Marvel Universe, who has been in a couple of films now, and really none of them have done justice. None of them have done justice to this amazing villain. He is multidimensional. He is very, very intelligent. I mean, I would say that he's still more intelligent than Reed Richards on many levels, except his arrogance.
Right.
He gets really, really arrogant, and he's self-absorbed, and vain. That it leads him to his demise. And Reed Richards always gets him one up. But these two villains will be featured heavily, and they were featured in this storyline, and there was like some kind of hint that they're related.
Yeah.
And you'd have to read the story to get more into it, but it's a phenomenal storyline. It's not as amazing as the Infinity Gauntlet, but I thought it was phenomenal. Infinity Crusade was a little bit here and there, but you know, they're amazing stories, and then they're not so good stories. But that's the cool thing. You discover your memories, your nostalgia, what you read.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. If you haven't read the Infinity Gauntlet, definitely need to read that. Infinity War, also wonderful storyline. Also, Infinity Crusade. It's not as must read as the other two, but still, if you like the cosmic universe, great to read. And I also love those two villains. My guess is that Kang is the Thanos of the Phase 4 universe. We'll see. I think Loki might be setting them up. You mentioned the Loki show. We'll see kind of where it goes. And Doctor Doom is definitely my favorite villain of all time. And so really looking forward to Marvel actually giving him a proper introduction. Well, we're going to wrap up here in just a minute. You know, we were talking earlier, there's so many storylines and things that we want to flush out. And so I'm hoping this is just the first of many times you and me are able to sit down and have a conversation.
I look forward. Definitely enjoyed it here today. It's a trip down memory lane. There's so much more to discuss. I can't wait.
Definitely. And I want to show you one thing before we wrap up.
Sure.
I got this issue that I'm super excited about. And you were the first person that came to mind when I got it, because it's Silver Surfer. And this was a big thing. There's a guy I found selling off his collection, and I was able to get a copy of Silver Surfer #1. I couldn't believe it.
Oh my gosh.
And so I am really stoked.
Oh my gosh. That is awesome. That is amazing. Yeah. That is amazing. I have issue 3 and 4, and I've been looking.
Oh, you got 4. I knew you had 3. Oh, you bet both of those.
Issue 3 has the first appearance of Mephisto ever. And Mephisto is becoming very relevant to the Marvel Universe. He's being featured somehow in the storyline Heroes Return. It's sort of a current storyline in the Marvel Universe, so I don't want to spoil anything. But then there's also in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he has somewhat of a role, or maybe even a major role. It's sort of up in the air. Yeah. It's kind of like still spoiler territory, so I won't mention where. You guys go ahead and discover. And then issue 4, that's like the classic cover of Silver Surfer. Yeah. Silver Surfer's coming down, and Thor is about to look like he's going to hit a home run. And this is amazing because Silver Surfer and Thor eventually become like best buds. Well, buds would be sort of not the best term. They're not like buddies like Hulk and Thor were like in Ragnarok, but they would become good allies, we'll say. But in the beginning, it was like phenomenal. Just back then, Thor was like ultra powerful god of thunder, and then you've got Silver Surfer with power cosmic, and he's phenomenally powerful too. And just their meeting, that issue I have as well, and I'm just like, wow, that's like amazing.
That's awesome. I knew you had issue 3. I didn't know about #4. Yeah. Those are on my bucket list of one.
But I have to find them because I went to scour for these comic books, and I actually had Silver Surfer issue 75, and I know I look for a million things comic books today. I probably stacked it somewhere where I have it laying around, but I'll try to find it in the future.
And the next time, yeah, you can show them off to us. Well, we're going to wrap up here. Again, great to have you. Really appreciate you so much. I appreciate it to come on, and look forward to the next one. And look forward to having all you viewers tune into our next one. Let me know what you thought of the video. What character are you most excited to see debut in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? As always, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, would love if you could do that. It'd be a big help to me. Like, comment, and until the next time, I'll see you later.